It all starts as a vision, an idea floating in your mind. Then it takes form through lines and shapes, grows into a 3D model, gets its soul from materials, and finally becomes alive through post-production. Hi friends, welcome to this video. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. In this tutorial, I'm going to design a complete exterior view of a house from start to finish. As you know, in AutoCAD you can access tools either by typing the first letters of their names or by selecting them directly. To begin, I'll use the rectangle tool. You can either pick it from here or just type the first letters and hit enter. Based on these dimensions, I'll draw the rectangle. I press Tab to enter the rectangle's width, and finally hit enter. Now, I'll select Explode to separate the rectangle's sides. Using Offset, I'll create parallel lines at a distance of 20 centimeters. With Extend, I'll lengthen this line. For the ceiling, I'll offset by 30 centimeters. Then, I'll offset by 4 meters to create the first floor. And another 20 centimeters for the wall. Next, I'll offset 295 centimeters for the first floor ceiling plus an additional 30 centimeters. Now, I'll use trim to remove the extra lines. Finally, I'll complete the upper ceiling using offset and trim. Alright, let's move on to the ground floor. As you can see, the first line has a 40 centimeters gap. Right at the start, I'll trim it so it won't interfere with the upper floor. I'll select this line, and relative to it, trim the rest. The next distance is 2 meters, then 30 centimeters, and another one is 20 centimeters. So, first I'll offset 20 centimeters, then 2 offsets of 30 centimeters, and finally another 20 centimeters. For the entrance door, I'll offset 120 centimeters, and at the end, another 20 centimeters. I'll also offset a bit from the top downwards for the doors and windows. Now, I'll take the measurements in this part. To extend, I'll draw a temporary line. And once that's done, I'll delete it. Then, I'll finish the extends. Next, I'll trim these sections. Only one part is left out. That's the lower part of the ground floor window. Its size is 60 centimeters. So I'll offset 60 centimeters and trim relative to these two lines. Now, let's move on to 3ds Max. In the Customize menu, under Unit Setup, make sure the metric option is enabled. I've set mine to centimeters, but you can also set it to meters, though centimeters work better. Now, go to the File menu, then Import, navigate to the folder where your file is saved, and import it. In the pop-up window, set file units to meters. I don't need to change any of the other options, so I'll just import it. To make sure the scale is correct, I'll use the tape tool. Yes, the dimensions are accurate. I'll delete one of the two drawings. Rotate the remaining one. And move it to the 0 point. In the snap options, I'll only keep vertex checked. Now, I'll start by drawing with rectangle, then apply extrude to them. I'll activate the Layers panel and turn off the AutoCAD layer. Next, I'll select everything and change their color to gray. Now it's time for extrude. If I use a negative value, the extrusion will go backward. I can also drag the extrusion modifier onto the other rectangles to speed things up. I'll scale this down a bit and move it back. I'll push it 20 centimeters backward. I'll also move this rectangle slightly back. This one is just like the previous two. I'll set this 1 to 11 meters and move it back 5 meters. This wall will also be 5 meters. These walls, I'll make them 20 centimeters thick. These ones all set to 1 meter and push them back. This wall I'll make 280 centimeters so that altogether they add up to 5 meters. Alright, now I'll draw the cross walls by copying these walls. I'll adjust their size so they fit properly. For the ground floor, I'll also copy this wall. And I'll make 2 more copies for the back of the house. I brought in the windows and the door, placed them in the right spots, and used scale to fit them. The door is fixed, but the windows are left. We'll adjust them together. Okay, the top window is fixed. For the ground floor, I need to delete 2 of the windows. Then I'll use editable poly to fix the window properly. Now it's time for the terrace doors. I want to place 2 sliding doors here. I'll select these walls and hide the rest. I'll also use scale to fix their size. Ah, I forgot this wall. Let me add it. Now I'll take a copy of this door and then mirror it. Now I'll draw two rectangles in the spots where the doors are, and then give them an extrude. I want to use Boolean to cut out the door openings in the wall. Alright, I'll convert this wall to pro-Boolean and use subtract to create the opening. Next, I'll add two walls in the middle of the house. I'll also place a camera here to set up the view. I'll complete this scene with different objects. Alright, I've added a few objects to the scene. Let's jump into the camera view. I created the stairs, placed different light objects, and added plants and trees in various areas. I also built these railings, brought in a wardrobe inside the room, and added some linear lights in these spots. Now, let's move on to the materials and check out the ones I created myself. I won't go into the ready-made materials of the imported assets. I'll move quickly here so the video doesn't get too long. First is the parking stair material, which looks like gravel. If you want to see the details clearly, pause the video here. Next is the ceramic material for the parking. For the grass material, it's a bit more complex. I brightened it up, used an AO map, and applied it to the diffuse. Both reflect and glossiness also have bitmaps. One map goes into the bump slot, and the other into displacement. Displacement works similarly to bump but with more accuracy, though it does increase render time. Here's the stair material, which is slightly brighter than the parking one. This is the ceramic material for the interior. These two are for the building facade, one brighter, one darker. I also added a very subtle noise parameter for more realism. For the wood railing, I used a ready-made Corona library material. This one is the HDRI setup. And finally, the linear light material. I've also set up a couple of extra materials for the render elements that we'll review now. Alright, let's move on to the render elements. I added direct, reflect and refract. The Z depth element, which defines depth of field from the camera to the farthest object. Here, I set it to 20 meters. C masking _ID, set to material ID. Light select, which you can add with the plus button. I used one for the ground floor lights and another for the terrace lights on the upper floor. Next is the shadow element. After that, the C-Text map elements, where I applied AU. Max distance is set to 1 and 10, both on outside mode. And here is the light select for the terrace. The first light select includes all the parking and yard lights, as well as the stairs and hidden lighting. Now, let's move on to the next topic, proxying objects. Right now, this scene has 12 million polygons and almost 9 million vertices. Objects like cars and trees really push these numbers up. For example, if I isolate just the car, you can see it has about 5,100,000 polygons and 2,650,000 vertices. So, I'll go ahead and select Open Corona Proxy Exporter. Here, I just choose a save location. I don't change any of the other settings. Proxying makes the scene much lighter and also improves render performance. This is especially useful if you're working on a weaker system. As you can see, the car is now displayed as a dotted object. And the polygon and vertex counts have dropped significantly. I'll use the same method for the trees. After converting them to proxies, they still render perfectly fine without any issues. Now, look at this. From 12 million polys down to 4 million. Much better. Alright, let's take an interactive render so you can see how the render elements are looking. Alright, that's enough for now. Alpha. Next, direct. This makes the diffuse textures clearer. Reflect is necessary to bring out the glossiness in the scene. Refract. Then we have Z depth, which darkens the scene the farther we move away from the camera. Material ID, useful for making selections. Light select for environment lighting. Shadow. C-Text maps. And finally, light select for the terrace. Now, I'll set up the final render settings. I'll put denoising on high quality. Raise the image resolution a little. And finally hit render. Since I want a high-quality render, it's going to take some time. So, I'll pause the video here and resume when it's ready for the denoising stage. Alright, that should be enough. To activate denoising, you just need to hit stop once. As you can see, it's now applied. Perfect, the render is complete. I'll do the post-production for this scene in Photoshop. Alright, from the File menu, I go to Scripts, right-pointing arrow, load files into Stack and import the render along with the elements. I make a copy of the main image using Ctrl+J so I can compare it at the end. I move one copy down to the very bottom layer. Then I turn off the rest of the layers. Okay, let's start with the CTEX map. In this shot, it doesn't make a huge difference, but if it were a daytime render, it would work better. I set its mode to multiply. You can see it a little bit along the staircase lines. Now I'll activate the CTEX map with 10 centimeters, and just like before, I set its mode to multiply. This one has a stronger effect compared to the first one. But I need to reduce its opacity, around 40% looks good. This part defines the wall. For now, I'll skip the shadow layer. Next, I'll set the light select. Terrace layer to screen. I'll also reduce its opacity, 80% works fine. For the light select, yard layer. I'll also set it to screen. And again lower the opacity to about 80%. The material ID layer I'll need later. Now let's check the Z depth layer to see which blending mode works best. It looks like soft light gives the best result. But I should reduce its opacity. 30% seems to work well. The further objects are from the camera, the darker they become. The next layer is refract. I set it to screen with 60% opacity. The next layer is reflect, which adds a pretty good effect to the scene, especially on the car. The best blend mode for reflect is screen. I'll set the opacity to 60. Actually, 70 looks better. You can clearly see the difference. And the last layer is direct, which slightly affects the diffuse of the materials. I'll set the blend mode to screen, but I need to give it a lower opacity. At this point, I'll do a quick comparison. There are still some steps left though. I almost forgot the shadow layer. Let me bring it to the top. I think it works best on overlay, but the opacity needs to be really low. 10% looks good. Once again, I'll show you an overall comparison. Now, I want to add human figures to the scene. I've picked these two. First, I'll bring in this man. I want to place him on the terrace, so I'll scale him down. To do that, I need to put the figure behind the railing. So, I'll activate the Material ID layer. Using the magic wand, I'll select the railings. Then, I'll right-click and choose Select Inverse to flip the selection. Next, I'll select the figures layer and add a mask. On the mask, I'll grab the brush tool and erase his shoes. Alright, that looks good. Now I'll hide the Material ID layer. I'll move the figure around a bit. Next, I need to adjust his colors to make him look like he belongs in a sunset environment. On a new layer, I'll pick the brush tool. I'll scale the brush down and choose a dark color. Now, I'll paint over the areas that should look a bit darker. The hands and neck are good spots for this. I'll also paint a little on his sleeve, but this time I'll switch the color. Next, on another layer, I'll add some highlights, making certain parts brighter. For example, parts of the hair and the top of the sleeve. I'll lower the opacity quite a bit so it looks natural. It's also a good idea to add a levels adjustment to the whole figure. That way, the contrast will look much better. Looks good. Now let's move on to the next character. I'll scale it down and place it in the right spot. I'll adjust the levels to improve the contrast. Next, I'll make a duplicate of this character, flip it vertically, and place it on the ground to create a reflection. Then, I'll erase the unnecessary parts so only the reflection remains. I'll make another copy of this reflection and flip it from both sides, but not horizontally. This way, I can adjust the legs and place them in the right spot. I'll lower the opacity and erase the extra parts again. I'll erase these extra areas. Now, I'll merge these two layers together and create a soft shadow for the character. To do that, I'll select the brush tool, change its settings a little. Now I'll change the color to black and make it a bit larger. Then activate the Material ID layer and select the parking stone area. Inside that selection, I'll paint the shadow and reduce the opacity. I almost forgot the light glow effect. So, I'll create a new layer. Pick a suitable color. And with the brush I'll add some soft highlights on the top of the clothes, head, and parts of the bag. Next, I'll slightly increase the opacity of the reflection to make it more visible. I'll also darken the sky by selecting it on a new layer and applying a levels adjustment. Finally, I'll add some birds in the sky using special brushes. And sprinkle in a few stars to complete the atmosphere. Next, I'll pick a light blue color and use a very small brush size to paint it in. I'll apply a levels adjustment to the whole scene. Followed by a curves adjustment. Let's compare it again to see the difference. And then add a bit of contrast. Let's compare it again to see the difference. It already looks much better, but there's one more step left: adding glow and light halos to the lamps. I want all the lights to have a nice glow and halo. So, I'll create a new layer, choose a soft glow brush, and apply it to the lamps. I'm looking for a brush with no angle. And this one looks perfect. Using the color picker tool, I'll grab the exact light color from the scene. Then, I'll adjust the brush size to match each of these ceiling lamps. Next, it's time for the light halos. I'll select this brush for the halos. It looks good. I just need to scale it down a bit. This step really helps to make the post-pro look nicer and more realistic. For the stair lights, I'll pick a slightly different brush style and apply that as well. Now I'll select a suitable brush for the light halo. This one works just like the previous brushes. I'll also add a small detail on the windows, using a brush to paint in some birds. I'll apply this effect in the birds layer, and from this angle, it looks great. Alright, let's do a final comparison. It looks great now. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave your valuable feedback in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next video. Goodbye.